right, welcome to the Prospect Podcast. As always, I have Coach D to my left. We have our monthly visit with the great Georgia Miller, talking some sports psychology, mental health, with respect to athletes, and diving into all of those topics today. Um, those of you who may not have listened to any of our past ones, when we have Georgia on, we discuss a multitude of topics. So if you go and watch any of the past episodes, but it's all related to athletes and their mental health and things that they can do and strategies they can do to help and not just improve their game, but help to improve their mindset in handling things with respect to sports, school, life, and trying to balance it all in a wild sports world, both at the high school and on the highest levels. Obviously, that's always going to be, the higher you go, the more mental demand there is on you. But more and more, because there's so many just kids playing sports, that load is also on youth and middle school athletes, and most importantly, as we talked a little bit, maybe just as importantly as we talked about a little bit on the pre-podcast, their parents and how to handle it, because I think that that's really important as you navigate the process, because we all as parents try to become our own sports psychologists, and we read on things that we might learn, and we think we got it figured out, and then your child does something that you never expected, and you lose your mind, and you're like, I can't believe. It's funny. I saw something, and then I'll let like Georgia kind of give a quick, for the 100th time, quick intro on herself. But I saw something really funny, not funny, but interesting about that relationship with parents and their kids. And when your kid is mad at you, he feels like it's forever. Okay. But parents, when you make a mistake or you get upset with your kid and you like maybe go over to the top, it stays with you much, much longer than it does to them. What I've noticed is maybe there's, most of the time, obviously, if a kid has a good mental frame, within a couple hours, they're bopping around with their friends, whatever, and you're 3 days later still thinking about how you yelled at them about something, or you got out of control about it, something. So obviously, as parents, we also need to gather perspective that kids are, obviously they're kids that are not resilient, and we have to be cognizant of that. But most kids are resilient to a certain extent, and we got to realize that we also have to move on. They forgive a lot better than we have forgiveness for ourselves too. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up. Georgia, quick, obviously 20-second intro just for anyone who hasn't been on the podcast, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. Well, so I have a private practice in sports psychology. So I work with a lot of athletes one-on-one about mental challenges like confidence, resilience, letting go of mistakes, focus, trust, injuries. And I have a few local teams that I work with on developing greater team culture. And then sport parents as well on just how to best support their athlete both on and off the field. So in a nutshell, that's what I do on a day-to-day basis.
How did you get into that nutshell? That's right. You wouldn't even know that movie. So, Derek, do you know that movie?
I do not.
Austin Powers.
Throwback.
Yeah, yes.
I actually referenced that the other day because one of my players went to prom and that's what he looked like he was wearing. And I referenced it the other day, and I was like, buddy, you look like, and they're like, there was like 10 heads that were like, what's that? And I'm like, I was like, whew, sorry, boys. Like, okay, all right, let's reset here. Like, I needed a minute to reset after that one. And but that's funny. Georgia, thank you so much again, because I love it's always so good to hear, when you come on, and just the perspective and whatnot in terms of what it is. I love the fact that you're not only individual based but team based, because I think that's just so important. And obviously in this ever changing landscape of sports, and just sports have always been impactful, but now with social media, I think it's everybody's kind of in an idea that everybody should participate in sports. And Dave and I have talked about this a lot, where, that wasn't always the case. Like when I was in high school, like there was a group of kids that didn't play sports, and that was totally okay. And you were still able to like have a relationship with them or have a friendship with them. Now I feel like the push for participation within youth sports it's a lot more than it ever was. And I don't know if that's because of social media. I don't know if it's because we've created this, atmosphere of, like just joining something and you'll get something for just being there, like the participation stuff. I don't know if that factors into it, but from what I've seen, obviously coaching at the high school level, is I see a generation of kids that deal with this a lot more, with whether it's anxiety or whether it's just overall just discomfort within themselves. And I understand that that's part of having been in education. I understand that that's part of, maturation and growing up and being a part of it. But is there something along those lines that just, they go hand in hand in terms of like why we have middle schoolers dealing with crippling anxiety? Is it because this generation of parents is quote unquote softer on their kids, and they just like, hey, it's not get your ass to school because I said you need to go to school. It's okay, stay home. You don't want to, we don't want to put you in an uncomfortable situation. Have you seen more of that in your time in doing it, or am I off kilter when I'm talking, when I look at that and that's what I see? Is that just my own perspective on it? Like, I'm very curious to hear what you want, or what you've seen.
Yeah, no, there's definitely just in mental health and sports psychology, there's two sides to it, right? There's this performance aspect, and then there's this more clinical mental health aspect. I am focused more on the performance side of things.
Right.
And there is a lot more talk about feelings. And I was literally, just before I hopped on the podcast, I was meeting with a soccer player, and she was talking about anxiety, right? And I think in today's day and age, we make such a big deal about anxiety when everybody has anxiety. What we aren't doing is giving kids the tools to manage it. We're giving them medicine instead. And so every family that comes to me, I tell them, let me work with them before you go the medicine route. Let's give them the tools so they can feel more confident and resilient in handling these scenarios versus just popping a pill every day to help them manage it. And I'm not saying that some kids actually need that. There's a chemical imbalance.
100%.
Right?
No doubt.
But
no doubt.
Not everybody needs that, though.
Correct.
So, and with my soccer player, going back to this, when she gets in her head, she gets really focused on how she's feeling. And like, but you don't need to feel good to play well. Like, does it matter why you're feeling nervous? No, like you go look to make a play. Don't look for a positive feeling. And that clicked with her. She's like, oh my gosh, I'm so focused on how I'm feeling. I just need to, literally go get the ball. Or keep it so simple, right? I think we tend to blow up our negative emotions so much nowadays when it doesn't need to be that way.
That's a great point there. It's their feelings is almost the most important thing to them. That's what I've noticed with a lot of them. So somehow I gone from being a football coach to now coaching 900 different sports. I don't know how that happened, but I was a football track guy, and now I'm a basketball coach. I'm thank goodness this year I'm not a baseball coach, but I still coach in track and coach in basketball. But what I've noticed is each sport, I have a different relationship with the athletes. So I'll use an example. Football could be super excitable, whether it's flag, tackle, whatever it is. It's just the nature of the sport. Like, you're hinging on each play to make a difference in the game because it can. And you don't score 15, 20 baskets in a basketball like you do in a basketball game where you could come back from flow. A guy scores 2 or 3 times, that's probably it. You know what I mean? So it creates a different level of tension in the game. Basketball's more free flowing, right? Like you can go on a run and be down by a lot and come back. All of a sudden your kids decide to play better defense, and they lock a team down, and there's less of that overall until you get maybe to the end of the game, that stressor, right? Track completely different, or any individual sport. I find myself mostly talking to the kids through everything. We probably laugh a lot more and talk a lot more because there's a lot of downtime in individual sports. They're asking you questions about your life. You know what I mean?
You have that time.
You're there for 6 hours.
Fill space.
Yes, they're trying to fill space too, right? Like even middle schoolers. Hey, coach, look at my batons.
How do I make this go a little quick? How do I make this go a little quicker?
My girl sprinters, like they created their own. Actually, it was great. They made their own. We're at a Catholic school, and they created their own. I don't know what they call it, but they put their stuff on top of a baton, like these stickers that they do, and they created it like this really colorful way. And that's what they wanted to use as their baton. And I was like, they're talking me through it. Like, football, basketball, these conversations would never happen. Okay. If you finish a game in football, they go home, right? If you finish a game in basketball, and let's say you have another game, they go eat with their parents for a little while and they come back. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't hang around. Track, they're literally hanging around, right? Swimming would be similar. They'd be hanging around, right? So the relationships are different and the dynamics are different. And I find it so interesting. I would love for you to, because the feelings, like, I can actually deal with their feelings in track, okay, in a very easy way. They have a bad race. You could talk to them. They're probably going to be here for another 2 hours, and 30 minutes later, they're okay. Mm-hmm. Basketball game or football game ends, they leave, you may not know how they're feeling, or unless they tell you, or they might just walk out mad, right? Some of these kids, right? And you don't know until later. But feelings are such a big part of the athlete's experience. And the reason why I say that is, and football is my biggest dynamic on this, if any time you're talking sternly to them, they think you're being quote unquote mean. I'm curious if Derek deals with this in the same way. Now, obviously, I'm in a middle school world more middle school. So you're going to be a little more feelings intensive, but my guess is high school, you're dealing with it too. They may not say you're being mean, Derek. They may use a different word for it. Like a kid will say you're being mean as a middle schooler, right? But I
get coach, you're an asshole.
Okay, right. That's their version of saying you're mean, right? They become more mature. They talk about it differently language wise. But that to me is a biggest dynamic change in all of sports, from being task based to emotional based in how they play. I would love for you to kind of talk about that. And then obviously you're seeing it a lot. Like, what are things that need to be addressed in that area?
Yeah. Well, we are a very, very selfish culture. We like to make it all about me, my mistakes, my errors. And I feel like half of my job nowadays is not necessarily individual sports, a little different. With team sports, is teaching athletes how to be a team player. How to play for a goal that's bigger than yourself. And when you start playing bad, it's because you're getting in your head and you're thinking about your own stats, your own playing time. Why did coach do this to me? You're thinking about yourself versus what can I do for my teammates in this moment, and how can I contribute in the best way possible? So I'm literally teaching culture and how to love and serve your teammates and put the focus on others and the task at hand. And after the game, we can think about you and your mistakes and how you can learn from those and get better. Mid-game, not the time to do that and feel sorry for yourself.
Absolutely not. And I think it's something that obviously, you know, being a high school football coach, like we deal with it a lot, right? And with social media, that's only added to it. The likes, the comments, right? I think even more so, right? Like parents, and look, now being one myself, I don't fault parents for wanting what's best for their child or constantly pumping their child up, right? But I think at some point, if you care enough, you as a parent have to understand and be a realist, right? And have some of those hard conversations. And, you know, when you get in the car, it's more about, especially team sports, right? Like it has to be, hey, like, I know you're pissed that so-and-so dropped the pass, but he's out there trying just as hard as you are, or he's maybe, you know what I mean? Like it's not, it just has to be approached different. And I think that would bridge such a gap, right? In terms of now they get to me in high school, because this is stuff that needs to be like from the jump, right? Like be a team player, understand that not everybody, if you're a good player, not everybody's going to be as good as you, or hey, there may be better players on your team that, look, you don't have to be happy if they're scoring all the points, but if we win, like we should be happy, right? And I kind of go back to my own upbringing and things of that nature, because yeah, we would win football games, but if I didn't score a touchdown or have an interception, like I would be pissed. But I didn't outwardly express that, right? Like that was great job, bro. We won the game. That's what I love. But guess what? I'm pissed that I didn't do it and I didn't feel like I was a part of it, right? So it was that balancing act of going back and forth with it. And I think I do a pretty good job personally with coaching that aspect of it with the athletes. But when they go home and they hear something different from mom or dad, that's a really hard battle to constantly fight, where your coach doesn't know, he's an idiot, or that guy sucks and he's never going to make that block. And I don't know why. Whereas I felt like back then it was like, do what your coach tells you, like whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, like you go and do that, right? It's the same reason, like if you're in a classroom setting, those are the children or kids or whoever, like they're more willing to like call somebody out rather than just kind of fall in line. And I think that's great. And I want everybody to have a voice in some way, shape, or form. But I think you need to police that and understand when and how to use that voice.
Yes, exactly. And I think if parents do that, again, because they want the best for them, they want to protect their kids' feelings and make them feel better. But it's the exact opposite, right? And the questions are very different now. Instead of parents asking, hey, what was your favorite play of the game? How were you a great teammate today? What could have gone better, and what do you need to work on this week? How can I help with that? It's more about why weren't you playing and what did coach say to you? And, you know, it makes it so negative. And then what that does for the athlete is then it gets them thinking, oh yeah, like, you know what, I do deserve this, versus helping them and finding solutions. So the questions that are being asked are very, very important. That's really what I'm working on with parents, is here are good pregame questions and here are good postgame questions to ask them.
Absolutely. I think the
mindset, give them a checklist.
Like they're kind of
like, this is our pregame warm up, right? Like part of having like
is a mental pregame warm up.
Your equipment is, guess what? On our ride to the game, you're not gonna be on your tab. You're not gonna be on your tablet or whatever it is. Like you're not gonna be listening to music. Like, buddy, we're gonna have this conversation. Like this is part of getting in the zone to prepare for a game. Like here's what we're gonna do.
Can you talk about the research? Can you talk about the research? Because I would, correct me if I'm wrong, but I read a bunch of research that if an athlete is like they have to get off like their tablets or phone, I think it was like an hour to an hour and a half at least before they go out to play, because if they don't, there's certain things that creep in from an anxiety standpoint because of the the lights of the tablet and the way that the games are all structured, and
Yeah.
supposedly it saps their energy. I read some, it's hard to know what research is correct or what isn't, but is there something there from that standpoint?
Yes, there's more and more research coming out. It'll be very interesting next few years that says it really impacts one, like emotions, but also reaction time. So I tell all my athletes, let's not be doom scrolling in the car on the way to a game. Listen to some
Yeah,
music
hell no.
or visualize. But the doom scrolling is so bad for your focus, because if we don't like it in the
Brutal.
first second, we scroll on
Boom.
to the next. Right. And so what it does for your focus is it's training this like squirrel brain. Oh, video, video. And that's so bad,
Right.
because in a game, we don't want this scattered focus. We want a calm, centered, single mind focus. And we never train that.
They don't
Ever.
listen to music anymore to get themselves.
Nope.
Like I used to listen to, I'm sure Derek did something to, for his own stuff. I used to listen to music to get myself right, and then I had a whole process like between stretch, because there was a time period where there was no phones, right? So I would stretch, I'd visit the trainer, I would go and take
You had
a
your
nap.
routine.
45 minutes. Then I would go and get my stuff ready. Then I would listen to some music. Then I would stretch out again or do any kind of pre warm up before I was like a long process. And it's funny because in college my process was longer because obviously I had more time and I would structure
Yeah.
myself that way. I learned. But even in high school and youth, because there was no such thing as, for me, my era, there was no phones. Like when I would be at a wrestling match, like if I had 2 hours before a wrestling match, I would grab something to eat, lay down in the bleachers and sleep. And my father would wake me up about 45 minutes before my match.
Right.
And he'd be like, okay, you might want to start light warming up, right? I would do that on my own for the most part. It was just part of I'm talking about 10 years old, right? So for me as a coach and a parent, and I know other parents and coaches deal with the same exact thing. Most of the kids now, my kids similar, they just think, get off the bus, go. Like that's what is their mindset. Like, I'm ready to go right now. I'm like, no, there's a process to being ready to go. Like, did you it's not that even, I'm a more dynamic stretch kind of person, like dynamic warm up, but I would take stretching at this point, like, something that centers them, you know what I mean? Like in a sense, almost zero ability to do that. And even when I was my last year of high school, I saw much less and less of that. But I'm sure it's in five years since I've been in high school, I'm sure it's exponentially grown, that part of it. But they literally, okay, I'm ready to go. Like, dude, like you got to get a process of getting your mind ready. Like, I always think about this because when I'm on I have long jumpers and they're on the way. My son's one of them, but I had like a really good 8th grade girl. She won the Catholic Conference championships. And, when I'm like, okay, like you got to get they're a few away from going, take a couple jumps in the air, get yourself ready. It's actually almost comical when I say this to them because they just take a little tiny hop. You know what I mean? I'm like, haven't you ever watched like Noah Lyles? Like he jumps as high as he can up before he's ready to go. So the nervous system is firing. They do like a little hop. And I just am like, no, like that's not what it's there's really a full education process for it that you're really going through. It's actually mind blowing to me. And it's funny because I think my kids that I coach are doing a better job. The other kids I'm watching, they just get in up there and they just go. Like there's no process,
because they don't know how.
It's just all their athleticism.
Right, they've never been taught to do that.
Never
They've never
been
been
taught.
trained to do those things. And then when they meet with someone like you, Georgia, and you open their eyes into, hey, this is what you should be doing, because most parents don't understand this, like this process of it, the off the field stuff that goes into it and the role that they play. And for me personally, like that's where I feel as a coach, we need to educate them. Like that opening meeting of every season, especially for football, that you have with parents, I think it should be done, June. You have this meeting, and here's what we're talking about. This is what I need as the coach from you as the parent in order for all of us to collectively put each one of your little Jimmys and Joes in the best spot to be successful. And that doesn't mean that you need to like hammer down on them if they don't listen or this or that. Like you need to just make sure that their jerseys are clean, and you need to have a positive, whatever it is. I think it should be structured that it needs to be communicated, because most parents don't understand that. Like your kid needs a solid meal on Wednesday and Thursday before this. Make sure they're drinking water starting Tuesday so that Friday they're fully hydrated. Like things that would just be like, wait, that's my job, or that's what you need from me. Yeah, give them a piece of it that they can have a role in it, and then it won't be this with coach and parent and all those. And I think those are the programs that approach it that way. I think they're better off for it, and that's irregardless of any sport. I think that's just part of it. That's how I look at it. I don't think that's the majority of it, because like you said, the people that you're working with or you see, that's never been brought to their attention that you need to be doing some of these things. This is a better approach than you just kind of winging it or just going out there. You know what I mean? Because those parents will do with what other parents do. Because that's, they sit in the bleachers and they all talk.
Usually
we
nothing.
see it with training. Right.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. If you want to be that parent that's just like sit in the bleachers and just make sure
that part's fine. That part's fine.
You're purely, Uber or Lyft. That's okay too. But if you want to like be a part of it,
parent conversations are funny. I would love for Georgia to talk about it, because it's funny, because I talk to, there's obviously sports I coach and the sports that I'm in the stands, right? And baseball is one of the ones I'm in the stands, which is endless time passing, and it's me sitting in my chair for 3 innings, and it's talking to parents for 3 innings. And I just find it so interesting when I talk to the parents as also being a coach, and when they say like what their kid does do or what he doesn't do to prepare himself, it's just comical. So like there are parents that says that I've heard that like their kids are super organized. They get their stuff together. And then I have my son being one of these kids, and another kid that I know really well who's a great athlete. He's also the same way. Everything is all over the place. Like if mom or dad don't hand him his stuff or don't, tell him to put it in his backpack, like, he's going to be screaming at you 20 minutes before the game. Like, because you're trying to always, and you try to teach him. I've talked to him. He's like, I try to teach it to him. And I said, listen, I do this. We go through it over and over again. We teach it to him, and like, I'm like, my kid, just like your kid is a slow learner. They think that everything should be done for them, and their job is to form. They think they're pro athletes, and his kid is a very good athlete also. And I was like, oh my God, your kid sounds exactly like my kid. Like he just thinks we're like his therapist, his massage therapist, his mental therapist. He thinks, and he was telling me his kid treats them the same way. Like they're all like they're pro athletes somehow. You know what I mean? Like, and that's how they treat their parents. Like, do this for me, do that for me. You know what I mean? Like, and I always say to my kid, I'm like, the pro athletes pay $100,000 for a guy to do this for, you know what I mean? Like,
literally.
But I would love for you to talk. But then there's parents that are like, my kid has his stuff ready, and I'm like, I don't know how that even happens. You know what I mean? So, talk a little bit about that, the parental involved. I don't want to talk about the negative, meaning like parents that are overbearing. We know about some of that stuff. I mean like preparation and how parents can frame things for kids.
Yeah.
Dive into a little bit of that.
Yeah, right. And I think Derek made a good point too. It's like sometimes parents just don't know what they should be saying or doing. So giving them like a checklist is honestly what I've done sometimes. And yeah, your job is to be an Uber driver for about 18 years until they start
Right.
driving. So yes, help them be prepared. Like, hey, sweetie, what do you need from me? Do you need like make you a sandwich? So do you have enough snacks?
Right.
Like, are your jerseys cleaned? Like, what can we set up the night before so you can just wake up and go in the morning? Like help
No
them
doubt.
prep things and then ask them. If you don't know what to say, ask them, hey, am I doing anything that is putting pressure on you? Or what do you need from me before games? Or, hey, what kind of music you want to listen to today? And if you need to sing and dance with them in the car, then do that. If they just want silence, then sit there in silence with them. What they don't need is a hype man, and they don't need a coach telling them, oh, remember this, 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 and this, because then that overloads them. And they're like, oh, well, does my mom and dad not think I'll remember to do that? So your job is to just keep it really simple and play some music and help get them ready. And maybe as the journey progresses, if you need to ask some questions like, hey, what's the strategy today? What are you going to focus on today? You can start implementing those open-ended questions. But when they're young, it's just about really getting them into the zone and playing the music that they like. And, oh, hey, after the game, we're going to go eat here and you have this planned. And you're already kind of getting them thinking like sports is not life. There are other things after this that we're going to be doing.
Right. I think that's so important. I think the open, you want to create a level of comfort and openness where they can say those things to you and to communicate that and to have those. It doesn't always have to be like you're walking on pins and needles, right? Or, that comfort will now allow that child, that athlete, to open up to you and maybe say some things that normally, they would internalize or just keep in, that would just grind away at them, or, you know what I mean? It's the same thing as if a coach, you got to keep it simple for some of these guys, right? But that, I think, also comes down to knowing your players, and who knows their own child better than a parent, right? Like, I understand that, but I also really take it from an outsider's perspective too. Like, okay, that's the parent's point of view on their child. Well, you're with them all day in school, right? How do you view it as maybe the teacher, or as maybe an aunt or an uncle, right? Like, some of those, the more perspective you can get on the individual player, I think that now allows me to work so much better because I have that information, right? And that might change on a day-to-day basis, because we're talking about either pre-puberty, or they're trying to figure out themselves as much as they are trying to navigate the craziness of the world that they live in too. Understand that, like, this is just what we deal with in youth. Like, this is youth. This is what it is. It's development of an individual. You want to be a positive part of that and teach some of the things that, you know what I mean? And it doesn't have to be like a slew of things. Like, you can just focus on a few common core standards, foundational stuff, bases, and then build off of when you see a strength come out. Or maybe you have to kind of work with a weakness in terms of that. But don't compare to another, right?
Correct.
That is an entire different situation, right? Go ahead, touch on that, because I know that's a big piece of it, is the compare to others type of thing, right?
Yeah.
And obviously, look, at the high school level, like, that is the end all be all, right? Like, they all want to sit at the cool table. They all want to do whatever, this or that, right? But like, it's about you and developing you, right, based off of what you are. Talk about that a little bit, Georgia, the compare and contrast world that it is.
Well, and I think it affects the entire family, right? Like, athletes will obviously compare to other athletes, and that's the biggest confidence killer ever. But a lot of parents can do it unknowingly. They'll be like, oh, well, so-and-so did this. Like, why aren't you doing that? And, oh, that's like one of the worst things ever.
Yes.
And then parents can get in their heads because they'll compare to other families and see what they're doing, and they don't want to be left behind. And so what I'll always tell families is, do not fall for that crazy youth sport culture. Like, it's okay to take a season off and for your kid to play multiple sports. It's okay
Right.
to do that. Look at all the professionals. Most of them, like and Patrick Mahomes is the greatest example. He played baseball until like senior year of high school, I think, right? Like
Yep.
don't fall for the all year round training of a single sport starting at the age of 10. And one of the best skills that I think parents can help their athletes with is reframing. If an athlete is complaining after a car ride home or so and so did this, well, hey, let's look at it from a different perspective. Like, what about this? And you get them thinking, you get them twisting it in a better way, and then also thinking about their own strengths. Yeah, maybe you didn't score the touchdown today, Derek, but you know what you did? You made this block and that impacted it hugely. Or, hey, I loved that you had that amazing hustle after that mistake that you made. We really want parents reinforcing the controllables, the attitude, the effort, and the reframing versus comparing and complaining with them afterward in the car.
Right. Well, that should have been your touchdown, and why didn't you get the ball, right? Or
I think that's very
just
difficult.
Doubling down on strong emotions that are already there.
Yes, I think that's very difficult for a lot of parents, and I think because in a variety of different ways, I'd love for you to talk about it, because sometimes parents make the comparison thing is a big mistake, and it happens a lot, right? Like it's not. They don't really do it on purpose. I don't think, in most cases. There's some parents.
No,
I don't want
none of this is done with a negative intent. Right?
My big thing is always like we always end up getting off in the tangent of the extremes, right? People do it extremely right. People do it extremely wrong. Most people, the 80% are in the middle there, right?
Yeah,
so the 80% are in the middle. So most of them do it unintentionally, meaning Johnny works out 3 days a week and he looks pretty good. You are doing it 1 day a week. You need to do it. And so that's an indirect comparison. But by saying that, you're saying, hey, accidentally, you're saying you're inferior. But that's what the kid hears. The kid thinks inferior. He doesn't. What I've learned is they don't draw the comparison about working harder. It's in youth sports, they do not draw that comparison. Not till they become middle schoolers. I would say maybe 6th grade they might be able to start doing that. Maybe a mature 5th grader, 11-year-old might be able to start doing that. But 7th and 8th grade is where they really start to be able to, if they're mature enough, they can have that's what it takes to work harder. Before that, they just take it to me, they just take it personally. You're comparing them to somebody else and saying, I'm not as good. And they're not taking it as I should work harder to be the best I can be, right? And that's the reframing that I have to do it. I mean, everybody has to do it, right? Like, and believe me, I know better and I make the mistakes. So, because when you see someone who does something really well and then you happen to talk to their parent and they tell you how much they're doing something, right? And then you say to yourself, okay, this is why this person or this group of people are ahead of you. And if you try to explain it to your kid in that way, they don't hear that. They don't hear that. They just hear I'm not as good. That's my experience. Mm-hmm. Most of the kids I deal with similarly, like when I talk to parents or kids I coach, that's the whole thing. The whole focus, I think you're 100% right, has to be, listen, the comparisons I do like to make is let's watch a video on Kobe Bryant talked about when the light bulb went off. Okay, I'm not saying you're going to be a pro athlete, but let's talk about it. Kobe Bryant was once not that good. He was a 10-year-old that struggled. And then he decided the summer, I think when he was turning 11, that he was no longer going to be not as good as these other guys. Now, nobody says to you that, they don't tell you that Kobe Bryant was playing with 12-year-olds as 10 years old, okay? But the point for the kid is to say, hey, listen, he decided I'm going to be the hardest worker. Once he decides,
Uh-oh. There you are. Well, just picking up where you were, Dave, I just gave a team seminar to a high school football team, and the entire idea was about stealing, not comparing. So, hey, what is so-and-so doing that's working so well for them? And is there a way to work that into my own training or my own routines? And that's much better. You aren't comparing and putting them on this pedestal and making your confidence drop. But it's okay, what are they doing? And maybe like, could I do any of that to improve myself? It's about improving yourself, not trying to kill a lot of confidence.
There's no doubt. I think that's really, and it's and then when you go back to like the I think from the original part of conversation, like the team versus individual sports, when with the team sports, you're right, like trying to get them to be a better teammate, doing the best that they can. You have to be your best individual self to be able to help the team, but that includes your individual preparation and performance, but it also includes your mind frame as far as being team orientated. So that's like the next step versus individual sports. You can really focus on being the best you could be. The biggest struggle on individual sports that I think is different than a team, where I think there's usually less anxiety in the team, I've noticed, because there are other people that can help you. So if you're struggling a little bit that day, you pass the ball a little bit. A kid will pass the ball a little bit more, right? And he may not say he's doing that, but you'll notice it, right? He's not taking as many shots or whatever, and they can pass that off and be a good teammate, right? Individually, the anxiety part is really a lot bigger because it is only them. And track and field is one thing, or swimming is one thing. Wrestling's a whole nother thing, right? Everyone's watching you. 300 people are watching you when you go on the mat. It's you and another guy. Like that's a lot of anxiety, and there's other sports like that, combat sports. And, there's a lot of sports where there might be like that are individual that the whole focus will be on one person that's out there, which is a whole different thing. But anxiety seems to be that like, it's just me. If I don't do well, there's no one to point the finger at but me. They know that, and when they're done, like anytime anyone ever makes an excuse, it's very easy to just look at them and be like, well, you just have to fix whatever that was for next time because it's you. There's no one else. You can't point to a coach. You can't point to someone else did something. There might be rare cases when that happens. And the reason why I say that is because when I watch relays in track, kids who do pretty well individually, and I just watched it this weekend, when these guys, because they're also used to being team sport athletes, when they go to run a relay, these team sport athletes, man, I'm like, where was that guy in the individual 400? Yeah. Like, you just blasted 5 seconds faster.
Somebody else. Right?
Yes, they like that.
In comparison to others. Yeah, because they want those 3 other people on the team or the 3 others in the 4x whatever to tell them like, yo, man, like you helped us, right? It's why team sports are, it's why the team sport, individual sport, like comparison, the feeling you get from when you do something for the good of others or when you do something for you individually is a battle that you need to figure out not only as an athlete, right? But as a parent, you need to look at it and say, is my kid a team person or is he more of an individual? And then not push them which way or whatever, but put them in better spots. Or make them aware of, hey, I think you do better when you're doing it for others, not just for you, right? And obviously that's something that comes with maturity and development and all those kind of things. Because believe me, there are a lot of guys, and I see it in football a lot, like that it's me. And look, if we win 36-0, but they didn't do well, they're pissed, right? I have other guys that they're excited to just get on the field and contribute in some way, shape, or form. Their name is nowhere in the lights whatsoever, right? And they're overly joyful of like, wow, I was a part of something bigger than myself, which it's why me personally, like coaching a team sport, like there's nothing like that. To get all those kids to buy in and do something for the good of the group, to circle back to our original point, right? With social media, though, the focus is always on the individual. Clicks, likes, all of these things, like they're fighting an uphill battle just because of what they're surrounded from and how they're being raised in that type of society now.
Oh, yeah. And I see it especially in sports like football, basketball, and volleyball. They literally start playing for the highlight reels. And, oh, I need good film this weekend, so I have to
100%.
And it completely throws them off. I'm like, how many times have you ever made a phenomenal play when you were forcing a phenomenal play? Never.
Right.
They're
They
like,
just happen.
Right. They just happen.
You have to just, right.
Yeah.
You got to do the right thing. And eventually a lot of right things create something greater. And that's the hard, trust the process and just continue to work. And, you know, because even doing that, there's always a chance that it doesn't happen, right? Mm-hmm. The same like with recruiting and all those kind of things. Like you might do everything under the sun and really be that, but that school just isn't in line for it. The timing isn't right. And that's why
like
one of my teaching stuff too. You know,
one of my things I think kids who do multiple sport athletes should try to do at some point in their lives is not just only do team sports. Okay, because most kids do love I call them the ball and stick sports, like, something with a ball, something with a stick, right? Mm-hmm. Like they love those, right? They're fun. But they should try to do an individual sport because at some point, because it will give you a little bit better understanding of what individual doing your best is, like what that actually looks like. And whether you could judge that based off of your work because you'll get a result from it. And then I think it amazingly, I think it helps in team sports because like I said before, you're still required to be your best individual self. You just have to do it within the team framework. But most kids in team sports don't know what the best individual self is. They do not know what that is. Because there's no time like in swimming. There's no time like in track or wrestling. Your record is 15-15 or you're 20-5, right? Like there's no hard number sometimes in sports for them to point to. Unless you're the feature guy, right? And so they don't really know what that line always is of what being your best looks like. And I just think it doesn't mean they have to do it when they're in high school. I actually think when they're young, they should try to do it.
Yeah.
Because you do get, you could be stuck in team sports, like in a situation where you're not ever going to be the star. Okay.
And it's humbling and it's good for them to.
That's good for them. And that's why individual sport is, okay, this is me. I can now see what I can do and my own limitations.
Mm-hmm.
And now I go, okay, that might make some sense when I go back to the team sport.
Yeah.
Track is my favorite and wrestling is my second favorite for two very easy reasons. Wrestling, you either win or you lose. There's no in between. Okay, one person wins and one person loses, and you come off that mat and you're like, "Holy crap, I stunk," or "Holy crap, I was great," and you could build on that. Track, you come out with a time or a jump or a throw, and you could say, "I'm getting better each week," or "I'm not getting better each week," and what am I doing or not doing to judge that? And then you could take that with you when you go to a team sport because you may not be the star. So now you can see, okay, I up my workouts. I am performing better. Okay, I'm physically and I'm doing what's needed with me of the team. And I think that there is a confidence level. It has zero to do with winning. Obviously, winning, you like winning, but you could see yourself getting better in an individual sport. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily know from game to game if you're getting better unless you get feedback, right? You could play a game and be just lights out, 4 touchdowns or 5 catches. The next game, 0 catches. Did you actually play worse, or was you just not getting the ball that game, right? You so you have to be able to understand, to me, what your framework is in order to figure out what it is you're doing to get better. I'd love for you to kind of chime in a little bit on that.
Yeah, yeah. Right. And earlier you mentioned there's a lot of parents who are just kind of in the middle, like that 80%, right? There's not extreme, there's not like this extreme, it's just like solid, right? And I think that's so important with athletes after every practice, after every game, to have some sort of reflection. And if you're more of a pen to paper type of person, great. If you just need a 1 minute reflection in your head, that's great too. If you need to talk out loud with someone, awesome. I really get to know the athlete and we decide what's best for them. But 3 simple questions. What did I do well today? What physically went well? What mentally went well? What could have gone better today, mentally and physically? And all right, how am I going to work on that in practice this week for my next game? And you do that whether you played amazing or whether it was the worst game of your life, because it always brings you back to neutral. And even with parents, right? If you feel like you made a mistake, then apologize. Hey, you know what? I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. I keep thinking about it. And what that does for the athlete is be like, oh, okay, well, that makes me want to apologize too, and have some sort of accountability as well. Right. So I think it's always about like coming back to your neutral after games. There's a lot of accountability in it. It's a great reflection, builds awareness. And that's how you get better. We're constantly learning and pulling from it. And after season, I always encourage athletes to schedule a talk with coach and go talk about strengths and weaknesses and what you need to work on. Like, coaches love that stuff when you're the one coming
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Like, and
it shows me you're invested. It shows me that you're mature enough to have these conversations, especially at the level that I'm at, where we're talking sophomores, juniors, sometimes even seniors in high school. Like, you're going to be on your own next year where you go to school. And like, these are some of the things that you're going to have to be self-aware of what's going on around you. And you're going to have to hit the reset. You're not going to have mom or dad there to say, oh, I think he's spinning out a little bit, or that affected him this way. It's why that freshman year of college is so important and impactful for the rest of your life. You're really figuring out how to handle yourself on your own. Lean on that guidance. And that's where, if you've set up a really good relationship with your kid throughout middle school, high school, and you've built on it, they're going to be comfortable enough to say, hey, I'm struggling here. Or, hey, how about like we look at the other side and say, hey, mom, dad, like, I did this today and I felt really damn good about it. And it's because you taught me how to do some of these things, right? And maybe at the time I didn't think it was important, but it really was, right? Because look, we always want to talk about the negatives in that, but there are parents out there that are asking these questions to coaches and other people that have seen it with a variety of kids who've handled things differently, or just how eras and things have changed and gone from this and that. Like, use that to your advantage, right? Because there are some that are doing it really, really well. And you hope you have one of those parents on your team to kind of like, fertilize everybody else. That's why exit meetings are so important. Like, so important because, or just, I even think even like, it doesn't have to be once a week, but you need those check-ins, right? And as an assistant coach, that's where I think I can aid in a head coach's world to bridge that gap, because he's worrying about the masses as the head coach. I can worry about my position group or my room or this, the JV guys, right? I can now get on that level with them and say, coach, I know this is for the greater good, but this is what this guy's dealing with, right? Those little impromptu check-ins of what's going on, how you doing, what's school like, how's home, right? Like, you got to know your players.
Yes,
You got to know
absolutely.
that this is a single parent home. This guy has struggled with this in the past, or hey, this is the anniversary of when his dad passed away. Like, you got to know some of that shit, right? And I think
Absolutely.
that's the more impactful you can be on that level. And look, myself personally, I think I do it a little more so than others, because that's just my overall philosophy is, if I know my players and if I'm on that relationship, I think they'll play harder for me and do better overall. I want to be that. And I understand some guys don't. They want to keep that wall up. I'm a coach. This is my role. I feel that this is where this is where it stops and all that. And some guys don't want to be invested that much in their players, and that's okay. You can go and do that and have that relationship. But I'm always going to be the guy that's not poking or prodding or trying to like get into their own shit, but I want to be aware of it to help that
Right.
person or
Get
that
to know
player
them.
more so. 100%.
For sure.
Because
Yeah.
I'm with them.
And-
You're with these guys for 4 years, Georgia. You know what I mean? Like, you watch them
Oh, yeah.
go from a size 9 sneaker to a 15, right? Or you watch them through some of these like really goofy experiences that they have in life that they don't know how to navigate, and you're helping them. And then by the time you see them walk across that stage, like, this time of year is always very nostalgic, right? Because it's like, man, you're graduated, and I've enjoyed our time. Did I always love you? No, buddy. Like, I wanted to knock your head off when you were a freshman, but look at where you've come from, right? Like, look at where we're at. And I think those guys respect that, right? Because you have that communication and that openness and that level of comfort that I don't know if back in the day, and I don't want to, always be the old head in the building, but like, I don't know if coaches invested the time like that, just because that's what it wasn't what it was. It was, I'm coaching you, you do this because I told you to do this. Like, there's a different level now of interaction and communication because of obviously phones and access that these guys have to our real lives. Like, you didn't know really about your coaches and like if they had kids or they were whatever, unless they brought them around or they kind of opened that up to it. Now you see these guys, like, they'll follow you on your social medias. They'll see what you're doing in your real life. Like, they want to be involved in that, and it makes you look more human, right, to them. And then I think that just, when you're open like that, I don't know. I just think it adds a different level of relationship within a player that they can develop better, because they see you as a person, not just somebody who tells them what to do or yells at them when they don't do it well. Right. I don't know. That's my own philosophy. I know some guys do it different, but I don't know. You see a lot of athletes, right? Like, when they talk about their coaches, is it negative? Is it positive? Like, I would think it would be, obviously they're coming to you with more negative things than they are positive, but I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the first questions when I'm getting to know an athlete is, how's your relationship with coach? And the coaches who do what you do, Derek, they love them. And because it shows, they care about me as more than an athlete, as a human too. And even if you aren't getting much from them, what it does, and parents also, those check-ins, not just coaches here, is it opens the door for harder conversations down the road. Or if they don't have an answer for you now, maybe they'll have an answer for you later. But the coaches who aren't doing that and taking the time, what athletes do is then can become very intimidated by them. And now they're overthinking everything that the coach says and does. And so now it's like, I don't want to go talk to coach, or, coach rolled their eyes in practice, and now they're in their head thinking they did something wrong. And what I always encourage athletes is, go talk to your coach, even if it's just about what you have for breakfast that morning. They want to see you. They want to hear from you, because that's just going to make you feel more confident and comfortable around them. And that transfers to how you're playing on the court.
Right. There's no doubt that level. And look, obviously we go back to this all the time, is you kind of coach the way you were coached. I've said numerous times, I was personally very fortunate to have coaches that were extremely knowledgeable from a very young age, not only on X's and O's, but they were like good dudes, right? Everybody has that coach or that teacher that has impacted them in a positive way or impacted them in a negative way. And at the time when you're going through it, you may feel like this is the worst guy in the world. But 5 years down the road, damn, that guy knew everything that I needed to hear and did it the right way. And your respect, and like that's, to me, that's rewarding, right? Because it's and I'm very open about that too with my players. Like, buddy, I'm gonna coach you really, really hard, and you're not gonna like some of the things, right? But understand that it's all in a place that it's because I care that I'm willing to kind of, I don't want to say cross that line, but I'm willing to coach you on that level and have those honest conversations where a lot of people just want to keep it easy peasy and, you know, hey, great job, buddy. Like, no, even when it's a great job, dude, I'm going to coach you because that's my job. My job is to get you better in every facet and nitpick at the little things that most people would kind of let go. Right. Or, hey, like those really hard, honest conversations of like, man, you got to look at yourself in the mirror. That's hard for a parent to do that because, you know, there's a different level of, you know, you're seeing that child every day and all these other kind of things that go into it. A coach's impact can be just so much more so when you're on such a personal level of like, you're not just a number in a jersey scoring touchdowns. Right? Like you're a human being who's going to go out and vote and be a father or be an employee, right? Like be that guy, right? But a lot of guys don't want to coach that aspect of it. When in my eyes, if you coach that aspect of it, it'll make the X's and O's and the athletic part of it so much easier.
Oh yeah.
That's
right.
But that's my own thing, you know? But I think that part of it, when it comes to teaching parents how to do certain things and making kids aware of those things. And then once they see them reap the benefits in terms of performance, like you talked about, right? Because that's where you focus on is the performance aspect of it. Now you can get into the, hey man, every time you run the 400 hurdles, like in this meet, you get all worked up. How do we handle that? Like they're more willing to work with that when you've had that conversation. We've had some of those conversations before. So, and now you can work on the performance aspect of it, which is really what this is all about, right? Like they want to perform at the highest level. And if they're not right, they can't do that. So you have to do the things that are important in order to but the awareness to me that, and you always bring that up. That's so big, right? Because most people just have never been made aware of, hey, you can do this, or maybe try this, right? Because there's no textbook on how to do that stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's where bringing you in as an outside consultant, that's like, hey, I'm vested in this, right? But here's what I see in the masses. Because that can't come from a coach. That can't come from an administrator. It can't come from a parent. It comes from a person who understands the bigger picture outside of even the program or the sport itself or the school, right? Like you come in and you're like, here's what it is. All right, let's make everybody aware of it. And now we can go into this is your
awareness is probably the hard. It's probably the hardest thing for athletes and parents. Like becoming aware, like cognizant of what has to get done in the right way is, I think, for the athlete, it takes a very long time. I don't know if it ever happens. If it ever happens, it's not until they're somewhere in high school and it clicks. You know, I mean, for until that point, it's probably you know, the kid loves the sport. You're taking them to this, you're taking them to that, you're working them out. They're doing it, but they're not really cognizant of what it all means. Even if their goal is to be a college athlete or a pro, whatever it is, it doesn't. Then all of a sudden, hopefully, the good athletes, it will click somewhere in high school, and they'll be able to go to a different level. The rare kid, like I know social media, you know, you'll see some 8th grader doing things that they're very aware of, but I don't even know if they're really aware. Like it may just be mom or dad of, you know, have kind of like, this is what they do. But once they do become aware, if they get to that point, that's when they can go to a very, very different level athletically. Now there are places too, and you're in Florida, obviously high performance sport state. Probably, you know, Florida and Texas and Georgia are probably in California, probably the 4 craziest also youth sport areas. And at the same time, they also have the best performances. Like, and it's funny because track is not a overwhelmingly popular sport around the country, but it's a great clip sport. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
it's one of the greatest clip sports because you got times, you see how fast a guy or girl is going and all this kind of stuff. But what I think is so interesting, what you could see in the states of Florida, Georgia, and Texas, which permeates around the country, is the level of resources, especially Texas, that are put into their athletes. And track ultimately shows you the like football. You know football in Texas is good, but you know there's no quantitative figure you could put to it, right? When you watch these track performances in Texas, you really quickly realize that the fact that they have better facilities, more money invested, all this stuff into the athletes is directly contributing to these incredible performances. And it's not just the athletic facilities, but everything around it at the high school and youth level, meaning, you know, there's many more people like you in the states of Texas and Florida than there are in New Jersey. Like, I don't
Yeah.
even know of anybody in New
Well, there's
Jersey.
more budget for us. So
That's what it is, right? And so it's very interesting because you see these perform. The track is really so easy to see it because you're like national record, national record. Like every race in Texas this year is like a national record. It's craziness, and um, it's just it's interesting because you see in Texas and those other states like the ones you're in how that emphasis is leading to great performances, which then puts anxiety back at all the people from around the country, right? And maybe even people in those states. Like, how the hell am I ever making the finals at 100 meters? I run 10.5. I can't even get in the damn finals in Texas. I mean, that's crazy. I'd win New Jersey. I can't get in the finals in Texas.
Mhm.
There's where people begin to judge themselves and know for a fact they're not at another level of somebody else. What do you think? And then I know you have a hard stop. I want you to be able to leave here. Uh, uh, what do you think people should do when
Oh, sometimes
Oh.
there you go.
they see somebody who's far ahead of them, and then they're trying to accomplish that? What do you think from a mental performance level they start to need to do to start knocking down, to start to say, "Hey, I can be the best that I can be. What do I got to do?"
I think a lot of it starts with the goal setting and not necessarily statistic and those bigger outcome oriented goals. I think it needs to just start with those more process focused goals of, okay, well, what does my best look like? And it's almost like working backwards. And I want to get this time. So what do I need to do in order to get that time? Well, I need to try my best. Okay, to try my best, I need to have a great start. Okay, to have a great start, I need to really focus on exploding off the blocks and pumping my arms. Okay, great. So this next time, let's just focus on being explosive off the blocks and pumping your arms. That's all we're working. That's all we're focused on. And then when we can get more comfortable with those process goals and executing those, then we can start incorporating more of those bigger outcome oriented goals, like the times when you can start getting more confidence and comfortable around the time. And it doesn't have to be this source of pressure or this huge source of confidence. It can just be like a good measurement to go off of and work towards. But I think we place so much meaning on those outcomes, and we really got to get athletes more focused on the process, the day-to-day things that you're doing and that you're focused on, because that's going to contribute and make a huge impact on those bigger overarching goals.
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Or just move to Texas, Florida, or Georgia and get one of those great facilities. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, it's really interesting. I love what you do. It has a huge impact. I really wish that there was more. Like we budgeted for more of these things in the school systems, because I think it would have a much bigger impact and a lot more athletes, just so they learn how to enjoy the experience. Okay, when they get upset sometimes in the experience, or a kid walks away and said I didn't have a good experience, they may not have really not had a good experience. I know people don't really understand that, but like it may be just how they mentally framed what was happening.
Yeah, and it's all like there are givens in sports that you can't avoid: the mistakes, the failure, the winning, the successes, the injuries, the awful, annoying teammates, the great ones, the bad coaches, the great coaches. Those are all things that everybody has to deal with in sports. So we got to give them the tools on how to handle those things, and then it all transfers to other areas of life, right? So
No doubt.
yeah.
One of the things I came to a realization was I love playing the game of football, but I actually really, you know what I like most? And I was not really sports per se. It was competing.
Yeah.
And so like people are like, oh, you love sports. And I'm like, I don't know that I actually loved I love football. I obviously for a very, very long time that was my focus. Obviously I loved it. But what I realized I really at 50 years old, what I really love, because you don't get to do it as much as you get older, I really loved what sports did was it allowed me to compete and find out how good I was. And it wasn't that it was like yes, there were certain sports I liked more, but it wasn't necessarily sports. It was the juice from competing, right? And it took me a long, long time to realize it. Like,
I have to go for me, and guys, I'm gonna let you wrap up.
yeah, yeah. We'll talk about it, but I think it's really interesting that
Thanks,
that
Georgia.
is indeed the case. Have a great
Bye,
day,
guys.
Georgia. Be
Yeah.
well. Bye. So I tell you, so one that was one of the things I came to a realization of. It wasn't that like I like football. Obviously, I like football, but I like just competing. You know what I'm
course.
saying? Like,
Look, it's why guys always talk about Michael Jordan being the ultimate competitor, buddy. Like it doesn't matter what he's doing, like or Kobe Bryant. Like those guys are the uber competitive. Like I'm the same way. It doesn't matter if we're, playing football or whether it's, just being good at what you do. Like that is a form of competition. Like I make everything about competition. Like I do it with school in terms of like, hey, I'm going to get a really good grade on this test just because I can do it. You know what I mean? Like when you look at life through that lens, like it's totally different. Some people aren't like that.
yeah, and there are some people that really are in love with an actual sport for everything that it is. You know what I'm saying?
Correct.
Football for me was the best way for me to express competition and what I like for me like to be able it was the best form of competition for me. But like
Right.
I've said this a million times, like why I was a good wrestler was just because I loved fucking somebody else up in a match, like
Yes,
and beating
there's
them.
nothing like that's just a different.
People
you know
thought
what
I
mean?
loved wrestling. I never really. I just liked being better than
Right.
somebody. I didn't really ever really like it that much. You know?
No. There's no doubt that adds to it. Like there's no doubt, and I think you get a lot, and that's why I think team sports are tougher on guys like us because we're just so competitive that again the masses aren't like us, and that's like a really hard transition to now being a coach when you have guys that might have all the measurables or the intangibles of whatever, and they just don't want to compete like that, or they just don't. I don't want to say they don't care enough, but it's just they just don't have that type of vibe to them that, hey, they lose a game, okay, we move on to the next thing. Like
People move
for
on.
me, that like
Greg
haunted
Olson said that he had a very hard time with some guy, and this was in the pros. He was talking about how some guys would
yeah,
just
those
move,
guys just move on.
Some
They're
guys like
next,
nothing happened.
next,
Nothing happened.
next. You're like, how do you not care? That was really eye-opening for me and my teammate actually from when we went from high school to college, and I'll never forget it because it was after our first game, and I had played a little bit, but he was just he made the bus, but he didn't play, and very small part of the big puzzle, right? And we got smoked week 1, and we were on the bus going home, and guys are like laughing and giggling, and it was a fucking party. And him and I are looking at each other and we're like, buddy, what are we doing? Like, this is insane.
And you'll see great athletes doing it.
Like dudes, right? Like, because obviously, look, it wasn't older guys on this bus, younger guys. Like, it was everybody. I mean, we're talking like starting defensive players, like giggling up a storm after giving up 37 in the opening weekend. And like, here we are. One of us isn't even playing, right? I'm on kick return only, like very small piece to have an impact to it. But we were pissed. And we were just like, dude, this is different, right? Because obviously we came from a program where like that everybody cared about winning. These guys, it was like they couldn't care less. And that's something I think, and that always resonated with me of like, okay. And that was very eye-opening of like, not everybody's like you. And look, it wasn't like the coaches were like, hey, everybody's got to be quiet or whatever. Like, that was just a self-policing thing that we looked at our teammates and said, wow, this doesn't matter like it does, and this is at the FCS level, right? Like, this thing just doesn't matter to these guys like it does to us, right? And whether that's because how we were conditioned and brought up, or whether it's just who we were individually, but that always resonated with me and sticks with me even to this day. Like, you look at a team and you say, look, that guy's like, he cares. But some of them, but there's levels of caring, right? And what's the angle for why they care? Do they just hate? Always said this too, right? Like a coach said, do you hate to lose or do you like to win? I hate to lose, right? Like, that's what it is. I just hate to lose.
I hate losing.
Some guys don't care. I lost. Like, it's because the weather sucked, or I just had an off day, and they can move on. That shit eats at me. And with football, that's very hard.
And I have a week, it is
before you get to do it again.
I think to be a great athlete, you have to really dislike losing, and then you also have to know how to reframe yourself after you lose. So, it's a tricky thing. You have to ride that line with the athletes that are really, really intense, but also so they don't get themselves in a situation where they struggle to perform because they hate to lose so much. So
right.
It's like there's a line there. Like there's no hard methodology on it, but there's a line where you have to be able to reframe after a loss. Like,
yep.
And that's because I was just like you. I was like, listen, I would carry it with me. It would bother me. It would piss me off. Yep. I'd be pissed at myself. I sometimes I carry it sometimes too long. And, like Vernon Hargrave said to me once, and I thought it was a great thing. And it helped me because it was one of the things I struggled with as an athlete was I did not like to lose. And I would blame myself if something went wrong. And I would always be able to reframe it really well and go to the next thing. But as you get higher and higher up the ladder, meaning college and stuff, you have to reframe quicker because like a bad play can happen. You have to reframe immediately. You have to reframe immediately. Whereas in high school, you might have got away with not reframing for 3 plays because, maybe it didn't make that big of a deal. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't. But in football and in college, you have to reframe immediately. In the pros, you might have made a mistake within a play and you have to reframe in that play. You know what I'm saying? Oh, shit, I got to go recalibrate right now. Whereas college, you might be able to reframe the next play and get away with it, right? But pros, like, I went in the wrong gap. I better chase that guy down and make a play, So,
right.
So it's such a important thing. But yeah, I think that the first thing I look for is a guy who really does not like losing because I could teach them to reframe, I think, over time.
No doubt.
But I can't teach a guy who only enjoys the spoils of winning, but doesn't get upset when he loses. I can't reframe that guy. You know what I mean? Like I can't. So he can only get to a certain level.
And that's what I think is very difficult to recruit, Dave. Right? Like you can't. How do you find that guy? Right? Like because that's something that
you don't know until they get there.
100%, right? And look, like just like my teammate and I, we didn't know that our team was like that until we got there and we're on the bus, because that can't be mimicked, right? Or you can even ask those questions to the guys that you're going to be a part of on a recruiting visit or whatever, but until you really see it, like, you just don't know. And you just kind of like, okay, you hope that those guys want it as bad as you do. But that's what's hard about team sports. Most people aren't on that level.
Yep, no doubt. No
Some coaches
doubt.
don't give a shit, bro. Like you knew
Yeah,
what coaches cared and what coaches didn't.
I think coaches are just like athletes. There's guys that don't care. That look, the biggest problem in sports, which is when the kids get to you have an issue, is because coaches who are intense are demonized at the youth level.
100%. Hard coaching
by the
is
time they
frownable.
get to you, by the time the kids get to you, parents already have demonized most of them. Now, are there guys that are way out of control? Yes. Okay.
Absolutely.
But a guy who's super intense and maybe goes over the top a couple times here and there, you have to be able to understand that there's a difference between that person and someone because he cares, and that person who is just really a complete J off. So
No doubt.
but you might be able to help that guy who's a little bit of a J off, like if you could help him reframe, because he obviously does care. He's just maybe going way over the line. So you could, if he's willing to reframe you. But what happens a lot too, and we won't talk, no one will ever talk about this, but because the culture is to be mad at an intense coach, at the youth level and the middle school level, what happens is their parents already have reframed that as soon as they see an intense coach from youth to
Negative.
try to shut that guy down. And what you're starting to get is a lot more coaches who show very little emotion.
Right.
And I find that alarming. Okay. People think
Me too.
Tony
Because
Dungy. Tony Dungy is the rare individual who can motivate.
Reid, right?
He's still intense though. He's not
Mike
like
Tomlin. Those guys just do it different.
Yeah, I mean they're still intense though. They're just not. But like
they're not the
Tony
Nick
Dungy. Tony Dungy looks comatose, right? And it worked for that team, and it worked for that group. Okay, but you got to remember before Tony Dungy got Peyton Manning. Before he got Peyton Manning, he was at Tampa, and he was a guy that was labeled could not win the big game.
Right.
Okay. When the quarterback in football makes a big difference in your success. Huge difference. You get Peyton Manning, the guy's, he's going to do all the yelling for you. He's going to yell at the players. He's going to yell at the center. His best friends, he would argue with his best friend who was the center. He's doing it for you. So you can be calm, Tony Dungy, when you have Peyton Manning or Tom Brady, who's literally going to command respect. And when he yells at a player or a coach or a guy on the team or a manager, he's doing all that for you. So when people point to Tony Dungy, like that's my thing is like, yeah, he had Peyton Manning. Oh, because Peyton Manning was good. No, Peyton Manning was good. And that obviously made a big difference. But Peyton Manning was a coach on the field. He would yell at each player to get them right. And Tony Dungy was his calming force, calmed him down when he was too intense. But Peyton Manning is the over-the-top coach, dude. Watch him play. He's fucking yelling at people all the time. You know what I mean?
Time, bro.
He's yelling at the greatest video ever is when him and the center get into
Saturday are going back and forth. Stop calling the plays. Like, I'll call it like that's the best.
Yeah, like do your job. He's basically telling Saturday, you do your job, I'll do my job. Shut the you know what up. Like Tony Dungy doesn't have to go over to Saturday to tell him that. He doesn't have to and that's when you know your team's gonna be really good. But when you have a Peyton Manning, you can be that way. Most of the time in high school and in college, you do not have leaders like that. Those are Tom Brady and there's other guys, but I'm just, using them as an example. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are the elite of the elite of the elite of the elite. They're the unicorns of leaders as players. And those unicorns, you might get them once in a while in college, and then you're golden. Or you might get them once in a while in high school, and you're golden. Most of the time, you do not. And that's the thing that concerns me when I watch high school coaches, and they're so comatose as some of these guys as coaches. And I'm like, how can you be so comatose, dude? Like, like I know you're trying to be Tony Dungy. I get it, but like you're gonna have a hard time getting the most out of a lot of kids if you don't have some level of intensity. And that's the world that coaching has gone to, if in my opinion. Like I wouldn't be a fit in 90% of the places anymore in high school. Just
No, it's very
because
difficult.
there's no way the first time I raise my voice or I'm intense, someone's gonna complain. It's
Demonized.
just you're gonna be immediately demonized. And I just think it's you would never
It's
you'll
wrong.
that
It's
when
just
people are
wrong,
like
but
people are like this, how come Pal Park can't do it anymore? They're never allowing a guy like me to do what I did anymore.
a lot
They're not
of places aren't allowing guys to do.
they're
things
not
like that.
allowing someone to turn around a program the way that I
Nope.
was allowed to do that and to
Come
bring
on
my
in.
intention.
Go 5-5 every year with no issues off the field and no problems coming across my desk, and we're good.
You're
Okay.
not going to get those kids to get someone. And you know what? My father called me up and said, I saw Elijah St. Hilaire at a track because his brother's, at New Milford.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And he said to me that I said to my father, he said, we still talk about Coach, meaning me, to this day about how that was and how much of an impact it had in our lives. Like all of our friends are really, most of them have really taken those things with them. And I could tell you, we broke eggs all the time. There was a
Yep.
lot of times when it not just wasn't fun for me per se, but wasn't fun for those kids, right? But in order for them to grow from where they were, which was ground
get
zero,
where they wanted to and get better,
it was never going to happen, dude.
This is what happened. You're right.
It was never going to happen, and I never got to the mountaintop. Like I would have liked more time because I think
Of
they
course.
could have got to the mountaintop. Like we were getting
Right.
better and better kids, but it just the culture was already changing. They weren't going to let me keep pushing.
Nope.
Like they were happy. We got to the state championship,
That was
and
it.
then we were 8-0 the next year again. But I could already see the tide was turning. They were pushing back against it. They were pushing back on the way up because you can get somebody out on the way up. But then once we were winning, they went. But then once we won, they really began to push back again. And I was like, gosh, we're not there. Like,
Right.
17 of 19 wins at home is not still. We still haven't won a championship. Like, we're not there. And they're like, for them, and I was like,
They were good.
we're
we
still
good.
need to push.
This is unbelievable. Right. And we're like
Right.
that, and that's where it's like to me, like, and this is what I've noticed in now going into year 17, right? Like there's just the expectation and the standard to continue to grow and get better. And look, even then, hey, we win a state title. Like, guess what? Let's go do it again.
Derek,
okay, we're
become
good.
other than a few places. There's a few places where it's allowed. Other than a few places, it's now become, what are your athletes? Who do you have?
Yep, no doubt.
That's it. There is
That's
no
it.
such thing. Old Japans and the Rumsons are among the last of these places. Okay,
They're holding on.
They're holding on, and there's going to be a turning point even there, maybe. If the coaches ever leave, and they don't replace them with an equal guy, it may turn the other way. But those are there's not many more of those places where you can do what they're doing and push and drive and
coach hard.
And
just coach hard.
And those guys have had a lot of success. Like obviously Rumson's passed from father to son, but it's a continuous episode. So they're able to keep doing it, But I just I don't see now. Texas is different. Like people are like, oh, we still do it in Texas. Of course you do. You know,
Of course.
there are places, and that's why people have migrated to that are really high performing athletes. They've
Georgia,
migrated,
Florida, to these
yeah,
places
or Don
where you can
Bosco
get
or
developed.
Burton Catholic, or you know what I'm
You got to
saying?
pick what it is. Like you go there, and that's what I always told people too when I was at Bosco. They're like, "What's the difference?" Like, the expectation is to get coached hard. Like, if you're the 7th guy on the depth chart, like, coach, you better still be on my ass to get it out. And that's the expectation from the kid. That's the expectation from the parent. Like, I'm sending my kid here to get coached hard. So don't worry about all this red tape, foo-foo, whatever. And I'm not talking about, like, dehumanizing coaching or, like, you know what I mean? Like treating kids like whatever. I'm talking about, like, you better be on their shit. Like, because if, like, that's why I'm sending them here. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what this is.
And I think when people are like complaining about like the transferring and the reason why coaches are, bending the rules slightly, I'm not saying they're breaking them, but like are bending it to get athletes, because in the back of their head they know that if I don't get enough athletes,
I'm not
I'm
winning.
not going to be able. I'm not going to be able to take this average kid and get him to good the way I could 15, even 10 years ago, right? And it's going to be much harder for me to get him from average to good than versus getting a kid that's already good or great and then just getting him a little bit better. Because I can't tell him you know what, you're an okay player, but if you get in your butt in the weight room every single day and you push yourself to the max and you get extra help and you do all this, you can get to be really decently good, and that will get us, if we get a bunch of those guys, that'll make us a championship team. You
No doubt.
can't have that the second that kid misses, okay, and then like that kid misses a weight room session and you now know exactly what that means. That means that he's not going to get there, okay? You now know I just need athletes because he's not going to get there. He's going to be stuck in okay land. And
Mhm.
that's a problem in certain places around the country. And now parents, the parents who are intense like that, or the kids who are intense like that, they're just moving their kids to those spots where they're going to get more coached up, and then a team who
Absolutely.
could be the team who could be really good, that's where they're like, oh, we're not, we're not as good as circa 2006 era of
You're like, you're
this.
not
Well,
allowing us to get there.
you're not allowing us. You're not allowing us to push the way we need to push. And that doesn't mean running 900 spins. It means consistency, showing up as often as possible. Not 2 out of 4 days of lifting, 4 out of 4 days of lifting, or you know what I'm saying. And those are the things that you know. I want that. We got to get DJ Nymphius back on. I just kind of reminded me of this. I wanted to talk to DJ about, because he used to have a great system and I adopted it and it worked really well. Pal Parker was one of the things that helped us, our off-season thing. And he used to have this whole scoring system and all these different things he used. I wonder if he still uses it in the same way, because that
I'm
system
sure.
was so great. So
Or
great.
at
We
least
did it a
some
little bit at Red
facets.
Bank. We did it at Red Bank, I think. But even
again,
by then, we
David,
couldn't
but
do it the
still,
way that
Dave,
I
it
did it.
goes right, and it goes, but it also goes back to you need a little bit of time to
do
establish
need time.
and get it going. You need at least, to me, if you really want to do it, and you look, there are some outliers that have done it quicker and whatever, but you need that freshman class to graduate.
Yes.
Once you get a class through, that's yours. You're good. Not good,
Yeah.
but the establishment is there or should be there,
100%.
like, and that's kind of like, all right. And I don't think that timing is allowed.
100%. The greatest quote I ever got, and this was when Bernie Josephsberg, who's hopefully he's still alive. He was an older guy at the time when I was there, and Bernie went to Columbia, played at Columbia. But if you saw him, he looks like a professor. He looked more like a Columbia student, but he was a football player there many years ago. And he said to me, he said, "I'm only giving you the job if you're willing to stay 5 years. And I said, you're going to give me 5 years? And I said, if you're willing to stay 5 years, I'll give you the job. And I took the job. And when he was, if the fifth year was when we were in the state championship, because that was the first class that was full through, right?
There you go.
And he said I said to him, I said, I remember what you said. 5 years, here we are. And he said that, you were able to do it. He's like, I didn't know if you'd be able to do it, but you did it. And but the thing was this, is that nobody does. No, there's no Bernie Josephsbergs in the world. And then Bernie, by the way,
Those
Bernie,
guys, and even if
how
there
about this,
is a guy
Darren?
like that, like
How
Go ahead.
about this? Bernie Josephsberg retired after that season. Okay. I had the next year, we just had, obviously the second class of mine. That class was the most talented athletically. They went like 8-2. And they were at 8. I think they were 8-0. No, they were 7-0. And then they lost to Heights and they lost in the playoffs. But that team was great. But I knew, like, to my parents, who were very influential with the board, they said to me, I just want you to know that, the next year, Bernie Josephsberg retired. We have a new person in, and we think that your clock's ticking. So
oh,
this is after making the state championship. My parents, who were very on the Leonia side, they said they were very influential. Like they were they were on the board at one point. These people, you know what I'm saying, not anymore, but they
Yeah,
knew
yeah,
everybody,
yeah.
right? And they're like, it's a different person. They said it's not that the person isn't a nice person. The person is a nice person, but they're not going to understand what you're trying to do. And
Right.
so enjoy as long as you can ride it out. And I was literally only there another year and a half. How about that? It's
That's what it
so
comes down to.
that's what it comes down to. I was only there.
And even
the
if you
clock-
have those guys in place as athletic directors or whatever, they're usually getting a lot of outside pressure from others.
They're getting
where
pressure.
They have to now conform or change or tweak it or do
Of
whatever.
course.
Like that's just part of it, man.
Yeah, they're not giving up their job for you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? They're not like look, in the old days, the old days, like going back to like when you were in high school and even before when I was in high school, there were people who just didn't give a, you know what, like they were
Correct.
going to do what they were going to do. And that's just it. Those days are gone. They're long gone.
And if you're still trying to live in that, you're not going to make it.
You're not going to make it. So you, as a coach, I think you should be who you are, but that's why you don't see as many guys staying around that are super
100%.
intense. You know,
Yep. And I think it's
because
why you see shorter windows of things. Some guys go and they take something, and it's just not what it was. And then, hey, I'm out, because they're not going to deal with that because it's brutal. You know what I mean? And to have that, you know what I mean? Like it's just, it is what it is. It's where we're at right now. And I'm sure back in the day they talked about it the exact same way of like, oh, it used to be this and now it's not. Like that's just part of this whole thing, man. Like things evolve, things change. We don't have to agree or like.
I think everything goes like this. So there was, I do believe, as far as the people from the 50s, their viewpoint of how softer it's got is a steady rise. But I believe that there's a curve. The curve goes like this, like, okay, guys are pushing themselves, but pushing kids really hard, but they're learning to treat them a little bit more correctly. There gets to a peak point where it's both they're pushing them hard and they're treating them well. That's your maximum point.
Absolutely.
We reached that point probably around when you were in high school, is my guess. Maybe a little, maybe dragged on for a few more years at a few more places.
Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
And there are some places still where that happens. Like I said, Texas, maybe, but there's some places in New Jersey, 15 to 20 schools in New Jersey where you could still do some of that stuff. You reach that max point, and then once you reach that max point, then it goes the other way where all they're expecting you to do is just be nice to the kids. And it starts to go in the opposite direction. So less intense, nice to the kids, until you get to the point where The goal is for them more to be nice to the kids than for them to be intense. And it doesn't mean you don't treat the kids well.
Right.
It means you don't just accept lower standards, and higher standards require a certain level of intensity. Okay? And that's it. Like there are Steve Jobs. I'll use business. People didn't like Steve Jobs, but that motherfucker built the best company in the world.
100%.
You know, could the guy who took over for him has slowly destroyed Apple, and he's a much nicer guy. He's friendlier, but he ain't pushing. He ain't pushing like Steve Jobs was. Steve Jobs was pushing. Okay, so you may not have liked him. He may be an a-hole, all these other things, but he also made a lot of people very, 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 very rich if they work for them and stuff like that, right? So you got to figure out where that is. You know what I mean? Like the guy who's in charge of Goldman Sachs, Jamie Dimon. Is it Goldman Sachs that he's in charge of? But Jamie Dimon, who's like the top financial CEO. Like
Yep.
he's as polished as you can get. Like when you talk, that dude is a
Grind.
driver. He drives people. Okay, he's the last of a dying breed in those areas. Now people become billionaires because they created something and sold it well, and it got bought by this group. Those guys are like dying breeds. There's not many of those guys left, right? And in the old days, it was Andrew Carnegie, where you could. That's why I say there's this point. Andrew Carnegie probably did take advantage of the workers back then, right? To build the company he
doubt.
built. All right,
There's no doubt.
but Steve Jobs didn't take advantage of the workers. What he did is he drove them. That's why I'm saying he's at that peak point of
There's a
like
difference.
trying to be successful versus hard driving. And Andrew Carnegie's from the era of when, in order to build those companies, you probably did take
You
advantage
had
of
to
a lot
do
of
some
people.
of that. Yeah.
You had to do. Now, you know what? It probably sucked. Then they made changes and reforms and
Figured it out.
things improved. But then it gets the other way. Like you make so many reforms, you make so
That's
many.
why you got to go back and forth with it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I just think that there's a balance to it in order to be the really best. And
Absolutely.
by the way, great
I couldn't agree
podcast.
more.
I think you would enjoy. It's very
She's the
short.
best.
There's a podcast this guy does. It's very, very short, and he does the rise and the fall of these different companies. I'll get you his name. It's short. Like his podcasts are like 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like you could, and he does all these different companies, and it's really interesting because you'll see like Pizza Hut, what they did to succeed, and what
Right.
brought them down over and over again. Papa
That's
John,
crazy.
and it's funny. It's all companies right? And you're like Toys R Us, like, and when you see it, every company goes through the similar thing that you might see in teams. They get to like a peak point.
Very, very comparable.
Right. They get to a peak point, and then there's a point where everyone's kind of satisfied and doesn't want to like
Well, you
keep pushing the
plateau.
envelope. And then they go down.
Yep. And then
Holtz
some
always
bounce
said
back,
this. Holtz always
some
said this. You're
freaking
either
go
getting
bye-bye
better,
forever, or you're getting.
Holtz always, you're always getting, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. There's no in between. So every day you're either
100%.
one of the two.
I couldn't agree more, bro.
Every day. And if you stack more better versus worse, you're probably going to do all right. If you stack more worse than better, then
Not
then
gonna
you're
happen.
It's and it doesn't change, dude. It just doesn't change.
For everything that does, that's always gonna be there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like for all the stuff that does change and this and that, there's always gonna be that standard of like this isn't going to change. This will always be there or a part of it. It's just
I know days when I've gotten worse. Like there's days when I'm doing something and I'm just like, oh, I'm just not there mentally.
Like, yeah, dude. It happens.
I got worse that day.
You just got to double down the next day and make it better, right? And just continue to drive and kind of go like from there. But some people can't do that. They just stay stacking those bad days, and that's a problem.
Yeah, it's one of the greatest lines, and it's like those tiny little things stick with you. It's like the three things that I've heard that stick with me. That's one of them. The other one, a guy came up to me when I was 11 years old, and I was so intense, and like I was at this regional track meet, and I don't remember if I was first or second, but like I was at this big meet, and this guy from this track club in Philadelphia. I was coming off, and I was all intense. I met him, and he's like, "Oh, what's your goals?" Blah blah blah. And I was talking to him, and he said your goal should be to be the best person that you can be, the kindest
Done.
person you can be. I was like, huh. Like this is a coach, right? I was like, I always remember
Yep.
that. And then I always remember this from Vernon Hargraves. You're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. Like, so when you're on film and you feel like you had a bad
Yep.
game, you'll watch film and you'll be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And you'll
Right.
watch a game
But
and
you
you thought
always
you had
think
the,
it's way worse or it's way better. It's just
yeah,
not the
you have a
case.
big touchdown, a bunch of touchdowns, or you have a great game in your mind, and then you go on the film and you're like, oh shit, like it really
Right.
wasn't as good as I
That
thought it
bad.
was. Those are my three things that have lasted
Every
with
time,
me,
bro. And it
because
works.
it's so it 100% works, and it's just like recalibrates you. But it's interesting as an athlete
100%.
when people have taken it, and these are people that took the time to tell you these things when they didn't have to, and they don't even realize that it impacted you. But it
Nope.
but it was these are aha. Everybody's different aha moments, but those were aha moments. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like I've got to apply that to my life, and So anyway, Georgia is great, by the way.
She's
Um,
always good.
by the way, just a question she asked me on the pre show about like those things, and I was like explaining it. As I was explaining, I was like, oh, you know what? Now I'm better understanding how he is in my own mind. You know what I mean? Like because that is, I'll tell you, as a parent,
So helpful.
it's so hard to. It really is hard because as much as your kid is just like you, they're also not like you.
100%.
So you see it all the time probably. You're like, oh, that's just like what I would do, just like what I would do, just like what I would do, and then you're
Right.
like, I would never have done
I
that.
would never correct. Like that was
I-
like that's not me. Yeah. But you have
That's
to, it is what it is. That's what all this is. That's what parenting is. That's what coaching is, right? It's that, hey, they're not me. So let's figure out how to make them the best version of themselves, Because I'm not trying to relive something through somebody else. Like it's their own journey.
yeah,
People struggle with that.
and there's no doubt. I think that it's funny because like I didn't even think about this, but a parent came up to me, like the kid who won we had a sprint medley, we won it, and the kid who ran the unbelievable quarter, one of the basketball players, and unbelievable, like team kid, and just ran a great race, like just as good as it comes. But the father said to me, he goes, I've never seen Troy run so fast, and I didn't think much about it during the race because I was like, oh, he looks like he's running good, but I didn't think much about it. But I thought about it. Those two guys, both of them, all they play is team sports. Troy and the kid who ran the 400 for the relay.
Yep. So they
Just play
understand
team
what it's like to be like, hey, if I do good, we all do good.
Yeah, and and that's why they boogie, man. They boogie because they want the other guys to be like, hey, you did good, man. You did good.
No doubt.
And
No doubt. That's
uh,
so important.
so interesting because in high school we used to have this. There was this kid. He was such a knucklehead, but he was a great football player. This kid, Peter Stewart. He never ran a good 400 individual. It would never run good. We put him in it, and it would just be not good. Great high school football player. It was crazy too. Crazy. Like would jump off a building crazy. That's how crazy he was. Dude, you put this dude on a relay and you get in his face, and that man would just run his you know what off. And you'd be like, how is his split faster than one of our best guys? Like, how's that possible? I don't know. Some dudes just will do it for the team. You know what I mean? Like
No
some
doubt.
dudes will just do it for their friends. They want their
And I'll
friends
do
to
whatever you want me to do.
Yep, I'll do whatever you want me to do for the team, and that's just who I am. You know what I mean? So half these guys are self-destructive in their own personal lives, but when it's around the team, they'll do it. They'll just do it. And I always thought that just his sister, by the way, was the same way. It was
It's crazy.
crazy. I don't know what it was about their. His sister was the same way. Like we could never get her to place in some of these, meets. And the relay would come and be like, you'd be thinking, oh, maybe we should put this person on because in the individual race they beat him. And then my father would always make those decisions. He'd be like, no, no, no. The stewards
Yeah.
run the relay. The stewards
Right.
run the relay. He's like,
That's
this
just
is not
their thing.
He's like, this is not a analytical thing. This is who's a dog, who, and the boy and the girl, they were just dogs. Like they would just, they were they were killers. You know what I mean? Like for the team. And
Program.
I always loved that part. Obviously, you love the star athletes because they could go to different levels. But when you see a guy that would just do it for the team, you're just like, yeah, I gotta have this kid because he'll just
100%.
he'll just do it for the team. So anyway, I'll let you go. Great pod today.
Yep, we're back tomorrow, 10 a.m. with Coach Jay Floyd, strength and conditioning guy that I've talked to for a little while. So it'll be good to hear his take on some things about in the SSC world.
Good, very very good. I wonder if you could ever get on. Do you know who Coach Ken is? Kenn. He's Ken, Kenn. He played in the NFL for many years. Big strength and conditioning guy.
Where is he where is he active a lot?
I see him on Instagram and TikTok a lot. And he's an older guy. He's probably 10 years older than me. He's a guy that's
QB guy?
No. He's a strength and conditioning guy. He's an old school strength and conditioning guy who kind of understands where the world is going, but doesn't really 100% buy into it.
Got it.
And he knows some of it's important, but like I've seen TikToks where he's addressed the comments where people are just like, you should, you're too old school. You know what I mean? Type of deal. I would love to get him on because he's a legend in strength and conditioning. Legend. And he does all these strength and conditioning conferences and he's always on video and he talks about all this stuff. I'll find it for you. But
yeah,
if you were able to get him on, he would be great because I think he is not, let's put it like this. I don't think he's 100% bought in on the whole speed thing. So, not that he doesn't think speed's important. He does, but you know what I mean? Like like some of the stuff I talk about, like he's going to be a big believer of squatting and cleaning and all that kind of stuff. And that's what makes you a better athlete. So I think it'd be great to have on just to have a discussion of why he kind of thinks that way. You know what I mean? And,
right.
Now, I don't know if he's tough to get on or not. I have no idea. Like, I follow him. Sometimes these guys are obviously tough to get on. Some of them aren't. But
looking at it now. Oh, okay. I got him.
Have you found them?
Yep.
Kenn.
Yeah, it's Big House Power.
Okay. Joe Kenn, that's it. I think he was a center for the Falcons back in the day.
I'm looking at it now. I'll get it. All right, cool. All right, yeah, I got it.
I think you would have a shot to get him on. I think you would have a good shot.
I'm gonna look at it. Yeah, I'll look at it and I'll reach out.
I think he could be interesting. Because I would love to get a little bit more of just like we had when we had Tony Holler and oh God, what's his name? The guy who was the Olympic bobsled coach and
I got you. Yeah, coach. Yeah, when we we can look into it. Like I said, I'll reach out to him and see what his deal is, and then I'll kind of go from there. I'll touch base. Hopefully the see whatever.
Yeah, we do a regular podcast with him first, and then maybe we get him in a group thing because I would love to hear his perspective on different stuff.
Yeah, no doubt. It's always good to talk to those guys.
Yeah,
especially
because they're so experienced. Yeah, because you think one way, but then you hear that and you say, am I wrong? You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't think I am, but I would love to hear why he would think we were more wrong than you know what I'm saying, or that may just be clips that are posted about him, and he may be on the same page. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes that happens that like you clip these certain things, and that's not exactly how the guy thinks about it. So anyway, I'll let you go. Good podcast today, bud.
All right, buddy. Talk to you later.
All right, bye.